So Marissa, welcome.
Good morning. Everyone can hear me okay? Today I'm going to talk about the district's flood-prone land acquisition program. The Floodprone Land Acquisition Program, or FLAP, was created in 1984 in response to the October 1983 flood event, the largest flood of record in the Tucson area. Flooding occurred after 6 to 7 inches of rain fell across the Tucson Basin over a 5-day period. Flooding impacted development along the Rito and Santa Cruz rivers, damaging both commercial and residential properties, with damage to public infrastructure estimated at $64 million. And I found these great photos. They're taken from the Daily Star at the time of the 1983 flood event. And like the one on the right is along the Rito River. I don't know if anyone was here during that time and saw the buildings fall in real life, but that's pretty crazy.
To point it this way.
Oh, touchy, sorry. It's touchy, yeah. There we go. Okay. Initially, the program focused on acquiring properties damaged in the 1983 event and relocation assistance to flooded property owners. Later, the program expanded to include the acquisition of flood-prone properties throughout Pima County. For developed lands, structures are removed and the land is restored to a natural floodplain. And for undeveloped lands, acquisition removes the future threat of development. The program is entirely voluntary, and interested property owners can submit an application for review and approval. Applications are then approved based on severity of the flood hazard, location in relation to other public lands, and available program funding. There it is. Besides minimizing flood damage, FLAP provides a number of other benefits, such as eliminating the need for structural flood control improvements, such as bank protection and levees, preserving or enhancing natural floodplain function, protecting open space for wildlife, including corridors that allow wildlife movement, preserving native vegetation, which in turn enhances groundwater quality by slowing and infiltrating floodwaters, and creating passive recreational opportunities such as hiking and birding. In 2015, the district created the Land Stewardship Program to manage the growing number of lands acquired through FLAP, with the mission to inventory, monitor, protect, enhance, and restore natural resources on district restored natural resource and open space lands, with the goal of maintaining and enhancing natural hydrologic and hydraulic stream flow processes in support of the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan. Open space lands are defined as lands with no existing infrastructure or improvements, typically purchased using FLAP funds, containing high-value biological resources, and oftentimes are located outside of the urban core, on the fringes of developed areas or in rural areas. And there is a few exceptions. We do have some open space lands that coincide with our drainage infrastructure, like the bank-protected sections that maybe have a large area of open space. So in those cases, we co-manage with our infrastructure management division. We also included under the program are the restored natural resource lands, which are basically our ecosystem restoration projects. And those are managed, or that portion of the program is managed by my coworker, Jen Becker, who's not here today. These lands are constructed or have incidental ecosystem resources, and examples include Swan Wetlands, Keno Environmental Resource Project, or KERP, and the Big Wash Ecosystem Restoration Site. And I'm not going to talk about those today. I'm going to focus on the open space lands in this presentation. Okay, so the land stewardship program has 6 goals. Okay, I realize this map looks really small on the screen, so hopefully you can read some of that. But in the lower right-hand corner, it shows how many of our open space lands, which are about 25,000 acres, were acquired through FLAP, which is about 15,000 acres. So this map shows the location of FLAP acquisitions relative to lands managed under the district's land stewardship program. As you can see, the majority of lands in the program were acquired using FLAP funding. One of the larger FLAP acquisitions is the 4,000-acre Cienega Creek Natural Preserve, located along Cienega Creek between I-10 and Colossal Cave Road. And Julia went into great detail earlier about that. The preserve supports perennial stream flow and native riparian vegetation and is home to a variety of wildlife, including the threatened or endangered lesser long-nosed bat, rufous-winged sparrow, lowland leopard frog, and Gila top minnow. Other FLAP acquisition locations include Agua Verde, a tributary to Cienega Creek, the Cañada del Oro Wash, which is northeast of Tucson, and the Brawley Wash, where we have quite a few acquisitions. We also have a few acquisitions on the east side of the Catalina Mountains, and Edgar Canyon is right here, and I just want you to remember that location for a little later in the presentation. By 2016, the district had visited each property at least once, with the future goal to visit each property once every 3 years, which has been achievable even while acquiring new properties. During inspections, staff document infrastructure such as wells, fencing, gates, and signage. Staff also document plant, wildlife, and cultural resources observations, looking for sign of threatened, endangered, or priority vulnerable species. All those pictures were taken from our open space properties, by the way. We also assess threats and hazardous conditions. Threats to open space lands include non-native invasive species such as bufflegrass, illegal dumping, wood cutting, and off-road travel by OHVs or off-highway vehicles. A land management plan will be developed for each watershed. There is no scheduled time frame for completing these plans currently, but a collaborative effort between the district, NRPR, and OSC have begun drafting plans for the lower Altar Valley area, which the district does own a few properties at the northern end of that, and Cienega Creek. Over the past 4 years, the district has implemented a variety of land stewardship projects, including rock erosion control structures, trash removal, invasive species removal, fence installation and fence removal, and signage. These actions help to protect the natural and cultural resources on these lands by removing or minimizing threats and stressors, and help the district meet our obligation under the Multi-Species Conservation Plan. District staff have been working with OSC and NRPR to identify lands suitable for T&E species. or lands that provide existing habitat and have developed an aquatic species management plan to identify priority sites for introductions and reintroductions. In April, Arizona Game and Fish Department, working with Pima County, introduced Gila top minnow to one of the priority sites, the district's Edgar Canyon property. And I have a couple short clips of video showing the release. I might need help with that later. And thank you, Brian Powell, for the footage. So here are Arizona Game and Fish collaborators, Tony and Brian, releasing the top minnow.
Marissa, where is that in relation to the homestead? Above or right there?
The homestead is as in which homestead?
The Goff's homestead?
Yeah, the Goffs.
Oh, it's right below it.
Below it.
It's down.
And so, and then we have a slow motion version too. I'll play that one more time. I don't know if anyone missed it. So, staff recently visited Edgar Canyon to complete their annual wet-dry mapping, and they found that the little fish are thriving, so that's great. But this area hasn't experienced a flood yet, so we'll see how they do after a flood has moved through the area. District NRPR and OSD staff regularly assist with open space inspections, which provides cross-training and allows Pima County staff to experience the district's open space lands. Staff learn about native plants and wildlife and the value of land stewardship actions taken to protect the land from human disturbance, erosion, cattle, and other threats. So in conclusion, FLAP has become an important management tool used to minimize risks to the public by preventing or removing development in flood-prone areas. The Land Stewardship Program provides a planning framework to manage the ever-growing acreage of land acquired through FLAP so that limited resources can be used efficiently and effectively to manage the land's natural and cultural resources. And speaking of limited resources, the district is looking for opportunities to collaborate on land stewardship projects. So in the past, we've collaborated with nonprofit organizations such as Watershed Management Group, Tucson Audubon Society, and Sky Island Alliance on projects. And typically what happens is the nonprofit approaches us with maybe a project idea and grant funding, and we provide the land and in-kind services. So if anyone has interest, please come talk to me. And then, any questions? I had a really cool mammillaria photo on my questions page. I don't know. It has a little native bee on it. It was just kind of cute, but anyways. I'll take questions.
Are there agricultural lands in the FLAT program? And if so, sort of how do they get treated in terms of developed, undeveloped? What's the...
The one that comes to mind is the Big Wash. That was a former agricultural field, and it was restored. That's the Big Wash Restoration Project. But typically the lands that we acquire, there's not a lot that have been disturbed, unless it was like disturbance that occurred like in the 30s or something. They pretty much restored natural vegetation. We do acquire a lot of lands that have been developed, so they might have like a house or mobile home on them. And that's like the first thing we do is we come in and demolish any of the structures and restore it back to floodplain.
Does the county have any kind of a policy or program for flood control? How it's affected by hard surfaces in the developed area? Green roofs
We do. We have a low impact development.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh.
I don't think everybody can hear it.
Okay.
Maybe
So you were asking if we have a program that deals with urban areas and hard surfaces.
Like green roofs and
Green roofs, yeah. So yeah, a couple years ago, the county worked collaboratively with some other groups to develop a low impact development manual. And we also have our riparian protection ordinance, which basically when people are coming in for a building permit or wanting to develop a subdivision or other type of commercial development, if they have mapped riparian habitat on their property, they're required to avoid and minimize. And then if they disturb more than a third of an acre, they're required to mitigate. And then the low impact development manual just provides developers with guidelines for how to implement that. And the city of Tucson actually has an ordinance where they're required to get 50% of their landscaping water from water harvesting, whether it was passive or active water harvesting. So the LID manual can kind of, helps those folks too. They can use that in the city limits. So.
This will be the last question, please. My question was kind of similar to Ida's, and I was wondering if there were lands that were managed under other programs, like the range management program, that were adjacent to some of your floodplain properties, and do you ever jointly manage those properties?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. We do, so are you talking internal to Pima County or other, like outside, external, either? Okay, well, I'll speak to internal first. So actually, NRPR does manage some of our properties. We own Pima Canyon on the east side of the Catalina Mountains, which is a fairly large chunk of property. We have a couple other properties that they help us manage. And some of our properties are adjacent to Pima County property. So I guess I should make that clarification. Pima County and the district own properties separately. There's kind of a separation because we have separate funding. Yeah. And then we have started talking to the city of Tucson out in the Agra Valley area because they own large tracts of land. And so we do work with them on certain issues like access and that type of thing. And I think in the future we'll probably be working with them more frequently, so on management. Thank you.